Welcome to the next video in our HTML series. Today we're going to be learning about HTML headings and paragraphs. So we're going to start with headings, and I have this web page pulled up from W3 Schools. W3 is the organization that oversees HTML and a lot of other languages, and they basically write the standards and specifications for what should go on HTML. So they have like an official website, and they have great resources to learn that help you learn, or when you forget, help you learn or remember how to write certain HTML, CSS, and other languages. So that's what this is. So we're on their heading section, and this is just an overview of headings. There's 6 different kinds of headings in HTML, guys. So we have heading 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And each heading gets progressively smaller and should be progressively smaller on your page. To be honest, you're only ever really going to use 1, 2, 3, and maybe 4. I've never used a heading 5 or heading 6. So these two could probably definitely be taken out, but it is what it is. We'll go ahead and we'll jump into our to some code here, to our code file, and we'll play around with some headings. So I'm going to open up my VS Code. I'm going to go and create a new file in my HTML course folder. I'm going to say for headings dash and dash paragraphs. So we're also going to go over paragraphs in this video. If I can spell it, .html, enter. Okay. And let's go ahead and do our boilerplate shift exclamation tab. Give our document a title, HTML heading and paragraphs. Okay. And then let's go ahead and open up our page. We're going to hit go live here in the bottom right corner. And we'll open up our web page that we're making right next to it. Okay. So let's go ahead and view and make some headings. So I'm going to make an H1 by typing H and the number 1 and hitting tab. Say heading 1. There it is. And we'll see as we go, they're going to get progressively smaller. So let's say H2, heading 2. So it's a little smaller. H3, heading 3. And see, they're smaller by default too. Like this styling, we haven't used any styling. This is just the default styling from Chrome. So Chrome, Firefox, Microsoft Edge, Internet Explorer, Opera, any of the I typed Chrome there. All of the browsers are going to have like default font sizes for each heading, and by default they'll be bigger and smaller than like they're supposed to be. Because you're heading, obviously, you don't want a heading 5 on a page to be bigger than a heading 6, right? That's just common sense. So always make sure when you're making your headings that they follow that. You don't want to have like an H2 above an H3. So another thing about headings is you wouldn't want to have like, well, first I should say for H1, guys, the most important rule for headings is each web page should only have one H1 heading, and it should be the biggest heading on your page. Okay, you shouldn't have like an H that's bigger. So one H1 per web page. That's the standard for HTML. And then the next rule for headings is you don't want to have bigger headings or smaller headings over bigger headings. So let's pretend like we were making like a blog post or something, and we had like the title of our blog post. We'll put H3. We'll put blog post title. Okay. So we wouldn't want to have that. And then like, let's say that we had some text. So I'll just make some dummy text here with the paragraph. And then we wouldn't want to have below that. We'll hit save below. So since we have an H3 up here, we wouldn't want to go ahead and put like the title of another paragraph as like an H2 within the same article, basically. So that's just, it's not correct standards, and it just looks silly to have like a big one here and then a small one. So just to demonstrate that, And then let's throw all of this into an article tag, a semantic article tag, since it's a blog post article. If you watched our last video, we went over semantic tags a little bit and what they are. So this is a good opportunity to use one. So we'll pretend like that's an article blog post. And then, so this just looks silly. This is like your blog post title. And then we know blog posts have several subheadings and paragraphs underneath them. So if you had like a blog post title that was an H3 and then subheadings that were an H2 that were bigger, that would just be silly. So don't do that. That's really it for headings. Again, just make sure that your font sizes for each, like a H2 should always have a bigger font size than an H3, H3 bigger than H4, and so on. You can change font sizes for headings with CSS. So let's go up to I'll show you where the heading 1. This isn't a CSS course. I'm not going to get too much into it, but I'm just going to use what's called inline styling to make this heading bigger. So I'm going to add a style attribute, and then I'm going to put font size 80 pixels. I think the default font for H1s in Chrome is like 32. So now we're going to make this 80 pixels. It's going to get huge. There, so it's a huge font, H1. And then if that was 80 pixels, then we would never want to go like style font size for the H2. Oops. And keep doing that. We would never want to make it like 94 pixels. Because now the H2 is bigger than the H1 again. That's just silly. You don't want to do that. So I think you get the picture here. Make sure that each font is smaller, only one H1 per page, and don't put an H3 and then like an H2 below it. This should be the H3 here, and this should be the H2, so it's correct. And then you can style fonts with CSS. Okay. So I'm going to get rid of this because it's incorrect. It was just like a little example of what not to do. So delete that. Okay. And then, so that's headings. That's basically all you really need to know about headings. There's 6 different headings and all those little rules that we mentioned. The next thing we're going to talk about is HTML paragraphs. So I'm going to bring this over here again. This is W3 Schools. This is just a nice overview. Paragraphs, we kind of did this already in the other video, but it's a P tag. Opening P, closing P tag, and then you just put your content in between the paragraph. So there's a couple things about paragraphs that we need to know. They're pretty simple, but one thing you should know. So we'll make it. I'll hit P and tab in Visual Studio Code and get my paragraph tag, and then I'll put this is a new paragraph. And this is our paragraph here. So one thing you should know about paragraphs is that if you hit spacebar and try to like put text on a new line, and we'll say like another line of code and save, that's not going to work and it's not going to put it on a new line. That's just how HTML works. It doesn't respect white space. Like I showed you guys earlier, like you can put a million spaces here and have a bunch of white space in your document, which you wouldn't want to do anyway. It's not going to affect it in any way. And HTML doesn't care about like new lines if you hit enter. If you wanted this to appear on a new line, you would actually have to use something called a line break. And a line break element is just BR. So I'm just going to do it's just an opening BR tag. There's no closing tag. And that break would actually put it on a new line. If you wanted it to be double spaced, you could just do another line break. I typed BR, hit tab, hit save. Now there's new spaces. So that's how you would do that. But you really don't want to use, even though you can use line breaks, like you don't use them often. It's not very good practice to use line breaks. You should be spacing stuff out with CSS. So you can use line breaks. Don't want to do it. If you have 2 separate paragraphs that you want to be on their own lines, just make 2 different paragraphs. So let's do lorem 150. And there's our new one. And then instead of trying to go down here and go lorem 150 again, like it's not going to do anything. See, it just connected everything. Just go ahead and put everything, get rid of that. If you wanted a new paragraph below it, just make a new P tag. And just do lorem 150 tab. And now there's 2 paragraphs, okay? So Yeah, that's pretty much it for paragraphs. Just know that you have to use either a line break or another paragraph below it for there to be a space between it. And yeah, that's nothing too complicated here, guys. Just paragraphs and headings. You're going to be using these tags a ton every time you build a web page, so you'll get really good and familiar with them. But this is just the basics of what you needed to know. So thanks for watching the video. And the next one, I'll show you guys about different fonts and typographies that you can add to change how the font looks. All right, have a great day.